Thad Brown and Sal Capaccio today. This is another 8 Sports Extra. You know Sal, of course, from Buffalo Kickoff Live. He also is the sideline reporter for Buffalo Bills games. He covers the Bills for WGR 550. And one of the main reasons that we are together here for this particular broadcast, Sal does a podcast with Matt Bove from WKBW in Buffalo. It's always game day in Buffalo. And one of the topics that you guys talked about that you and I talk about all the time as schedule nerds, you have a podcast every year with Mike North, the VP of broadcasting from the NFL, that kind of gets us going into NFL schedule week, which we are immersed in right now. And Sal, just for everybody at home, I know most people have seen it already, but for anybody who hasn't, kind of give me the selling point on why the average NFL fan would enjoy hearing you and Matt talking Mike North.
Well, thanks, Thad. Always good to be with you, and I appreciate it. And I would say the reason is you learn so much about the process of the schedule that you probably didn't realize or think about. There are so many things that go into making the NFL schedule that we just don't think about. Yes, we know that there's going to be a certain number of primetime games. Yes, we know they want to highlight the best players in the league. But really, the thing that I learn every year, and because now we have all these streaming platforms and different, places to put the game, how much the league cares about that. Like, you got to give all your networks a little share of the pie. And he even said networks have long memories if you don't. Like, you don't want to make bad bedmates, right? Bedfellows, whatever you want to call it. And you want to make sure everybody's they're not going to always be happy, but you want to help them out a little bit, and that's one thing that really is interesting to me when they go through the process. A great example is Bills Chiefs. Like, look at the different platforms it's been on. It's been Sunday night. It's been Monday night. It's been Sunday afternoon. So you say, well, let's give CBS it this year. Let's give NBC this year. It's not just the primetime aspect. It's the network it's on.
We'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about a little more with the Bills primetime games. But where I want to start with the Bills schedule is for you personally, when you look at the slate of games and the potential slots where it could be, what is the number one thing? And this isn't from like the football point of view about how the Bills make the playoffs or what's good for the team. For Sal Capaccio, what is the number one thing you are keeping an eye on for Bills schedule release this year?
Okay. Are you talking Sal Capaccio, the sideline reporter, or are you talking Sal Capaccio, just the person?
I think Sal Capaccio gets to decide that. Whatever Sal Capaccio wants to be.
I am looking at where the bye week falls, what the game is before the bye week. For example, I would love this year for Seattle to be the game before the bye week because I'd love my family to go out to Seattle, enjoy that, and we just stay for a few extra days. And that would be a great trip because when we come back here, the Bills really don't have anything. So that would be awesome. That's something I'm looking for. I'm looking for warm weather in December. Now, we know they're not going to play in Miami in December. We know that's a week 2 game we could talk about. But I would say, at least if it's not warm weather, there are 5 dome teams they're playing this year. I think 5. Think about it, or at least Seattle, if I'm counting as a, not a dome, but,
mostly a dome.
Seattle.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you got it. But so I think at least that's something I'm looking at. We're going to get games in Buffalo in December. We know that. It's going to happen. I don't want every game to be in cold weather cities in December. I want there to be some reprieve for that a little bit. And then when it comes to just the sideline reporting, I think about the stadiums themselves, like where I'm going, but that's already been decided. We know what stadiums they're going to, but I do think about that stadium and that climate. So for example, Baltimore this year, like last time we went to Baltimore, it was rainy, right? And I'm thinking, okay, like we going to Baltimore, a little colder weather. Are we going to Baltimore? It's going to be in September, maybe a little chance of a little warmer weather. I know I can't affect the rain. I think about things from that standpoint too.
I feel like every time we go to Baltimore, it's been pouring lately.
Yes.
But, the reason I asked that question is for everybody, and maybe for fans, I think the answers might be similar in terms of what are the good trips where, might I be able to enjoy seeing the Bills on the road. But for you and I and all the different people in the media, it is different what everybody thinks about. And you and me to a little lesser extent, but where the Bills are late in the year, because you're going to watch every single game outside on the sideline, stuff like that matters. I know for me, the number one thing I'm thinking about is, can we avoid Christmas? I have just been tired of playing the holiday games and look, Thanksgiving, I kind of, they've done it enough now. I can live with it almost, I can understand or understand what the process would be to, okay, I can still enjoy my holiday this way. I don't want to play on Christmas. And I think the other part of it too, with that being a Wednesday game, not only is it playing on Christmas, but you take the last 5 days of the Christmas season, and now you and I are going to truncate that into game, practice, media day, game, travel. There's just so much that's going to go into that. I would love to avoid it. My gut is we don't, but that to me is the number one thing I'm thinking about as schedule release day approaches.
I don't want to play Christmas either. I especially don't want to play on the road because that takes away Christmas Eve. We're traveling. We got to be there. Got to go
Right.
in the city the night before. Now, I travel with the team, as people probably know. I'm on the team charter. So I would say the one I would never complain. It's the most amazing thing to travel with an NFL team, right? But because of my position traveling with the team, I don't get to go a day early, right? Like if you decided to, because of Buffalo Kickoff Live and you and Josh are going to be at a city a little bit earlier, you can do that. And that is one of the drawbacks of I only get to visit these cities for literally one evening
Right.
anytime I go, right? So I would say one of the things I look at is, ooh, Thursday night in Miami, I get a whole day in the sunshine, because I can't go until the day before, but at least I get a day and a night in the sunshine. I should say the next day, like all Thursday before going to the stadium. So little things like that matter. I can squeeze them. The other thing I'll think about is, as someone who grew up here in Western New York, I think it is so cool to see Orchard Park, the foliage, and the weather in fall. I love afternoon Sunday games in Orchard Park for the aesthetic view of it and to show off our region. I think it looks so cool.
All right, let me move on to the next topic here. You and Matt, for It's Always Game Day in Buffalo, did your own Bills schedules. And the thing that stuck out to me, especially with yours, is that you only had the Bills with 4 night games. I know that
Mhm.
from your podcast, the definition of prime time is
Yep.
different, but this is a team that I still think, and I think Mike North indicated it to a degree, is still a team that's an elite, team, a major draw, or at least that's the way the league views it. So give me the thinking as to why only 4, and again, 425 games are big national games. You got a bunch of those on there, but why only 4 night games for the Bills this year on your mock schedule?
It's a great question. And maybe I'm interpreting it wrong because what you just said is right. And you just talk about the 425. I came away from our pod this year thinking they really believe that 425 game is a big time window. Like that matters a lot to the league. The standalone 425 game on either CBS or Fox. So while I only gave the Bills 4 night games, I gave them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 425 standalone games. To me, that's a huge window for the league that they want to highlight. Could I have given them Bills at Texans at night? Yeah, of course. I think that could be. I think Bills Lions at night could be one. Bills Ravens at night. I took all those games and said, I'm going to make some of these 425. There's 5 of them. I gave 425 windows. So to me, it's not about the night. It's how many are not 1 o'clock Sunday. I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 1 o'clock Sunday games for the Bills. The rest I have on national windows. And that's what mattered to me going back to our conversation with Mike North.
I look at the team this year. I still think they're a 6 nighttime game
Mhm.
team, and they're going to get a bunch of 425s on top of it. When you went and put that schedule together, what was the most difficult thing for you to assemble? Because this, in large part, is a big puzzle, and it's
Yep.
about putting the pieces in the right spots. And you don't have the complete puzzle. You're just doing the Bills part. You're doing 1/32 essentially of the whole schedule. But that in itself, I'm sure, is a pretty difficult chore for you putting that together. What were the places where you kind of said, "Boy, I don't know, I'm going to go this way, but I easily could go, path B if I wanted to."
Where to put the Chiefs game because as Matt pointed out when we just talked Monday night, like it was a late game last year, but I said, look, the previous 3 years was always week 5 or 6, right? What are they thinking about how to treat that? That was one, but probably even bigger. I struggled a lot with, do I put them on Christmas or Thanksgiving? And look, they're playing at Detroit this year. I'd be surprised if the league goes back to Buffalo at Detroit on Thanksgiving, but we know Detroit's playing there. But that night game, that feels like it could be a Bills game again, maybe a night Thanksgiving game, right? The Bills have played on Thanksgiving 3 times in the last several years, and they're huge draws. I could see it. And then the Christmas one. It's like, what are the chances? I keep thinking about. I don't have the Bills on Thanksgiving or Christmas in my mock, but that was to me like that's the opportunity. I probably could have done that, and I wouldn't be surprised if I put him there. The other one was just the opener. Like, what do you do with the opener? Do you start off with the Bills with a bang? Mike North said, I asked him specifically, Thad, as you know, I'm like, look, Bills fans are like, hey, prime time on the road 2 years in a row to open the season. Does that get you to? We can't do that again. He goes, look, we do think about those things, but it's not after 2 years. Like 2 years doesn't quite move the needle to say we don't want to do that to a team again. I still feel like that's not the case, especially now that we know Bills at Dolphins week 2. They're not playing Sunday Night Football, I think, week 1. I think that's a Sunday afternoon game.
Almost certainly too. And AJ Feldman from
Yeah,
over here,
I
News
saw
8,
this.
posted today that every single team that has played on the road on Thursday week 2 has been home week 1. So I think Bills home is a lock, and it feels like Bills 1 o'clock is probably the play because some of the night games are already out. Let me ask you about the Detroit game quick, the Thanksgiving game. To me, that game is an opportunity for the NFL for the first time in decades to put almost anybody in that game
Yeah.
because forever you had to put somebody good with Detroit because Detroit wasn't good. You wanted to get people to watch. Now it's Thanksgiving, people are going to watch anyway. But now, Detroit is the draw. You could throw anybody on their schedule in that game and it wouldn't matter because, wow, I get to watch the Lions. So I don't think there's a chance at all Buffalo ends up in that game because to me, Buffalo Detroit is way too good for Thanksgiving Day at 12:30 in the afternoon.
As Mike North would call it, the anchor team, right?
Yes.
Like it was always the other team. It was the anchor team. You could put any team on Thanksgiving people are going to watch, but you wanted a decent matchup for the Lions if you could. Now, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. We don't have to worry about who they're playing. It's the Lions. They're really good. It's Dan Campbell. They got juice. They're the anchor team. Whereas years ago, he would say, like, if you were going to put the Bills on prime time, it had to be against an anchor team. Now the Bills are the anchor team on prime time. It doesn't really matter who you put them against. Case in point, last year, Denver and the Bucks both became primetime games in Buffalo.
I had the Bills doing a primetime game with Arizona this year. To me, the Bills are the anchor. You could play Kyler Murray on the other side. Marvin Harrison, I think, is going to be a draw. So that was fun. I almost had the Bills playing Tennessee in a night game because I didn't have Tennessee anywhere else. And I figured, well, look, Buffalo can still be the draw. You got Will Levis on the other side. It's not a terrible idea. But, to that point, the Bills and I think the Lions now are big-time draw teams. When we talk about draw teams this year, is there a team that you think might surprise people in terms of, and I've got one too, I'll give it to you after you go first, but might have more or significantly less exposure than fans might think? And you can make this 425 plus night games if you want, but either way, a team that when the schedule comes out on Wednesday, people are thinking, wow, that's a lot more of that team than I thought we might get this year.
Well, first of all, Mike North specifically said they whiffed on the Texans last year. He said we whiffed. We didn't put them on enough. They're going to be on a lot. So, but I think people are expecting that. I think people are expecting this team, but maybe not as much as they're going to get. We're going to see a lot of the Bears this year. It's the Chicago Bears. It's Caleb Williams. It's Roma Dunze. I mean, this is a team I think that the league is going to want to highlight. It's Chicago, big TV market. I think we're in line for a lot of Bears. We do not know the Sunday Night Football Week 1 opener yet. I just keep thinking they're going to put the Bears in that spot, whether it's the Lions or at the Texans or something like that, because that would satisfy both those teams.
Bears Packers would be a good one there too. That's a game that's on prime time.
But you can't have it.
Because
Packers are Friday night that week.
Oh, that's right. They're already on the. Sorry, so it can't be
That's
that
right.
one. But yeah, I'm with you on Bears. My team, my surprise team, Atlanta Falcons. I think with Kirk Cousins on that team, that makes that offense viable. You've got Bijan, you've got Drake London, you've got Kyle Pitts, and the other thing too is they play the AFC West. So they have Kansas City and the Chargers and the Raiders, who are all, attractive teams. Like I have Raiders Falcons as one of my night games. You might think of that, well, Raiders Falcons, who cares? You start thinking about who's playing in that game, Devontae Adams, all the pieces in the Falcons side. So I really thought Atlanta would be, my team to kind of exceed expectations for NFL prime time. Let me ask you this. You've talked to Mike North now going back, 4 or 5 years? You've done that podcast with Mike? The schedule has gotten so much different in that time. You think about 5 years ago, no Black Friday, Christmas wasn't always a thing. There were, mandatory maximums in terms of when teams could be on prime time. At least we thought they were. And now the way the schedule works is a little different. You kind of want to spread the league out and let each network partner kind of get a piece of each franchise. If you kind of think about what the NFL has done in expanding all these games, obviously expanding partners too, Amazon Prime, Peacock, a part of the mix now. Where do you think, as someone who's talked to Mike North a lot, is the direction of what the NFL schedule will be 5, 10, even 15 years down the road?
You mean the release itself, or just
no? I mean like what the schedule looks like as a whole, because there are so many more standalone games. There are so many more partners. The way the league manages how to distribute those games seems to have changed quite a bit in the last 5 years.
I think even though they keep saying they didn't want to play on a Wednesday and now Christmas is on a Wednesday and they wouldn't do it, they did it. I mean, I think we could see something like that where, every once in a while we're throwing in a Wednesday night game to kick off the week, right? I think, there's a Friday night game internationally, not to interfere with high school football. I specifically asked Mike about the broadcasting act that said you couldn't do that, and this is their way around it. Right now they can do it. And what did Mike say? Eventually, what he said was, every year, eventually, every team is going to play at least one international game. When do you place those international games? How do you place them in the schedule? Where do you place them in the schedule? That's something. There's been talk about the 18 game schedule, right? I would tell you this. You can't have an 18 game schedule without the NFLPA approving it because the CBA says you can't have an 18 game schedule. But man, money changes a lot of opinions, right? So if we're talking 4 or 5 years from now, Thad, before, and then look, the CBA only expires in the next 6 years anyway, and then they're going to do a new one. We're going to get an 18 game schedule. It's going to happen. The question is, does it happen maybe a couple years before that? Does it happen then? But once you start doing that, I think it opens up even more possibilities of how you can place these games, where you can put them. That's what I think we're looking at. But of course, the other thing is, I mean, looking at pay-per-view, it's almost like that anyway now. We're not paying per the game, but if you want to watch the game, you got to pay for Amazon Prime. You got to pay for Netflix. It's the same thing anyway, basically.
Yeah, you're already getting a level of free games on free TV. Anything beyond that you want to watch, even if it is the Thursday night package or the Black Friday game, you got to pay for it. The point that really you made that kind of, sparked it with me here is the idea that if Wednesday for Christmas is open, the old joke about, well, they're just going to play the NFL any day of the week. We might get to something that's
right.
close to that relatively soon.
Yeah, that's right. And one thing that's happened really funny the last couple of weeks is ever since the NFL said that they're going to play on Christmas, people say, "Oh, schedule's been leaked. I have the schedule," or people doing mock schedules. But the one that is funny is the fake schedules. And I look and I'm like, nope, it's not real. You know why? These people are putting Christmas in week 16. The Christmas Day game, the games start week 17 this year. They do not end week 16. You can't have a team playing Saturday, the 20, they would play the 21st. Yes. What people have is Saturday the 16th and then Christmas and then the following Sunday. It's not going to work like that. It's going to be Saturday, Wednesday, Christmas, and then off that next weekend. The Christmas Day games are the start of week 17, not the end of week 16.
Yeah, and I think the easy way to remember that is because those teams have to play the Saturday before, that's week 16. But the idea that we have to figure out what week is what week, it just underlines the point you made about what days we're playing games on, going forward. All right, Sal Capaccio, thanks very much for joining us. Remember, you can listen to the great Mike North podcast. It's always game day in Buffalo. And as always, Sal Capaccio is on Buffalo Kickoff Live, WGR 550, sideline reporter for the Buffalo Bills. And I'm sure if there's another job that someone wanted him to do, he'd do that too. Sal,
travel baseball coach. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's what we're all doing right now. All right, Sal, thanks for joining us, man. And appreciate your time.
Yep. You got it.